Have you ever looked at a really slick, modern website and just wondered, how in the world do they build this stuff? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on React, which is one of the most popular ways to do it. We're going to break down its two absolute core ideas, something called JSX and these things called components. So let's just dive right in. I mean, really think about it for a second. You're scrolling through your social media feed, you're clicking around on an online store, and everything feels so seamless. It just works. But behind all that, how do developers actually wrangle all of that complexity? The answer is actually way simpler and honestly more clever than you might think. Instead of trying to build one giant, complicated, tangled thing, React developers do something different. They build with these tiny, independent, and reusable building blocks. And that right there is the key. It's what makes building massive, complicated websites manageable. It's a total game changer. All right, so if we're gonna understand these building blocks, first we have to talk about the special language they're written in. And that brings us to our first big idea, JSX. So JSX, it stands for JavaScript XML. But what does that really mean? Well, think of it like a hybrid. It lets you write code that looks almost exactly like HTML, the basic language of all web pages, but it gives you the full power of JavaScript right there mixed in together. Now, take a look at this. What's so interesting here is how familiar it looks, right? If you've ever seen any HTML, that H1 tag for a heading is totally standard. But notice how it's being set equal to a JavaScript variable, element. That's the magic of JSX in a nutshell. It's blending these two worlds together, and that is 100% on purpose. So you might be asking, why even bother with this weird hybrid language? And the reason is for us, for the humans writing the code. By letting developers describe what a piece of the website should look like using a structure they already know, HTML, the code just becomes so much easier to read, to understand, and, to fix when things go wrong. Okay, so we've got our language, JSX. Now let's see how we use it to create the absolute heart and soul of React, the components themselves. These are the real building blocks we've been talking about.
So what is a component? Well, it's really just a chunk of your website that you can wrap up and reuse over and over again. The important thing is that it's totally self-contained. It manages its own stuff, its own logic, its own look and feel, without messing with anything else on the page.
Honestly, the best way to think about this is Lego bricks. It's the perfect analogy. You don't build a giant Lego castle by carving it out of one huge piece of plastic, right? No way. You snap together hundreds of small, standard, reusable bricks. Components are the exact same idea, but for building websites. And this is what makes all that complexity we mentioned earlier actually manageable. And to make this a little more real, just think about any website you use. That navigation bar at the very top of the page, yeah, that's probably a header component. The login button, that's a button component. That little box where you type your username, probably an input component. Each one is its own separate, tidy, reusable piece. So the idea itself is pretty simple, but when you go to actually write the code, there are a couple of ways you can create these Lego bricks. Let's take a look at the two main flavors you'll see. Okay, on the left, you've got what's called a functional component. This is the modern, clean, and by far the most common way to write React these days. It is literally just a JavaScript function that gives back some JSX. Simple. Now, on the right is the older style, the class component. You'll definitely still see this out there in older projects, but for anything new, pretty much everyone is using that simpler, functional approach. All right, we've talked about the language, JSX, and the building blocks, components. So now it's time for the big reveal. How do these two incredibly powerful ideas actually work together to build something you can see on the screen? Okay, so let's say you just wrote that little welcome component we saw. You've made your own custom Lego brick, your own little piece of the user interface. So, what now? How do you actually get it to show up on the page? And this is the truly beautiful part. You just use it like it's a regular HTML tag. This is so important. You have essentially created your own custom HTML tag. You can now type welcome element anywhere you want in your app, as many times as you want, and React knows exactly what to render. It's so elegant. This really lays out the entire workflow perfectly. It's like a simple three-step dance. Step 1, you describe what you want to see using JSX. Step 2, you wrap that JSX in a function to make it a reusable component. And step 3, you use your new custom-made tag wherever you need it. That is basically it. So, if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. The whole point of React is to manage complexity. It is a system designed from the ground up to let people build huge, interactive web applications, not as one giant, scary, tangled ball of yarn, but as a clean, organized collection of simple, independent, reusable parts. It literally turns chaos into order. By breaking down these massive problems into small, bite-sized, component-sized solutions, React really does make the modern web possible. And now that you get the fundamental building blocks, it really just leaves one question, doesn't it? What are you going to build first?